Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's New Cyber Frontier.
Welcome to today's episode of New Cyber Frontier. On today, we are continuing our series on blockchain transactive energy and energy security for delivery for IEEE and energy delivery systems. Today, we have some great guests too here. Sri Nikhil Gourisetti and James Kempf. So, got your name. I hopefully got it right there, Sri. Sri, as a background, he worked for PNNL for several years, ran several of the ICS projects with energy systems and also using blockchain distributed ledger for several of them. Master's in engineering, Ph.D. in engineering sciences, and currently the principal security engineer at Resilience. A new role, which we can talk about a little bit, but he sounds excited to kind of move into that. James Kempf, Ph.D., University of Arizona, systems engineering, staff at UC Santa Cruz, currently working with his own company, Kempf and Associates, but lots of background in 30 plus years, architecture, internet architecture board, standards for mobile computing, software-defined networking, and latest in blockchain and some developments there. Thank you both for joining today. We'll kind of let each of you one at a time give a little bit about yourself, your background. Sri, I'll let you kind of begin here.
Thanks, Chris, and very happy to be here. I'll just keep it super short so we can squeeze all of our fun discussions into this. I've been working, or at least involved in some kind of blockchain-related activity since around 2017 timeframe. Started as a very small exploratory effort that led into a number of Department of Energy funded projects. In fact, I was part of the first DOE funded blockchain mixed with cybersecurity project for energy delivery systems or utility systems in general. And then since then, I've been involved in transactive energy related applications, supply chain security related applications, and I'll talk more about some of the work that was done and that's going on right now in this space. I think I started working with IEEE back in 2018 timeframe. Like James was saying, that it's this 2 years it's a little hard to kind of paint the timeframe with when things happen in the past. But yeah, and we're doing a lot of really interesting things in IEEE and moving the needle, moving things ahead forward. So yeah, that's about me.
Yeah, James, yourself, give us some details.
Right. So I actually did a lot of I did some pro bono consulting at Powerhouse, which is incubator for renewable energy. They closed and pivoted, and now they're doing mainly VC work, and also referring the large companies to startups. They have a couple of thousand database of startups. And so the large company wants to partner with a startup. But I've also, based on that, I have a long-term interest in renewable energy. I put my first solar PV system in my house in 2004 when it was really expensive. And I put another one in 2010, a larger one, and a third one, and I took the old one off, and I put another one just this year. And it's been amazing how the amount of power you can get out of the same amount of area has increased and the cost has dropped. And I also have a home battery, and I've completely decarbonized my house with the exception of a stove. So the carbon footprint has gone down by a factor of 10 over the last 20 years. So that's basically, kind of my interest in renewables. And it seems to me that blockchain, through its distributed nature, is really the right solution for writing the kinds of charging, billing, and service delivery systems that are involved with renewables, especially with DER renewables, and that's why I got interested in it. And I built a service delivery framework for Ericsson for cloud computing, which was for typical SaaS applications in 2016 to 2018. And when I was working at Ericsson, and then recently, I mean, I've started working for myself and teaching at UC Santa Cruz and working with IEEE since around 2019, 2020 with the BCT initiative on trying to get blockchain into the energy delivery system. So that's where I'm coming from.
It's great to have you both on. We're going to take a break here from our sponsors. We're right back to talk about today's topic about fielded blockchain energy demonstrations and things that are going on right now. Be right back.
Blockframe technology offers next-generation blockchain managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. On today with Sri and James from the IEEE blockchain group, and working with standards, working with applications, working with for demonstrations. But today we're going to talk about things that are going on right now that are kind of touching at the global level or the international level with the blockchain IEEE blockchain standards and blockchain initiative. So if we come down to what things are going on, Sri, I'll let you start. You worked at PNNL, a couple of initiatives in blockchain. Tell us about where that's been and what you've been working on there.
Yeah, a lot of the stories that I'm going to share today regarding blockchain and its mix with energy systems and cybersecurity were all part of my past life. Because as Chris mentioned, I'm at a new company and addressing a lot of interesting things in the ICS security side. But when I was at PNNL, we were doing a lot of interesting things. We started with exploring what the technology actually was, what it meant for energy systems in general. Like, what kind of value does it bring? Does it actually bring any value? Or what aspects of blockchain may be useful at different aspects of power and energy use cases? So at a very high level, we had a project that was dealing with making use of blockchain's capability of integrity maintenance, through hashing and etc. Could we use that in securing the data in transit and data at rest, like the data that is exchanged between control center and substations, and data that is being stored at historians? So that was a very interesting blockchain-based cybersecurity-related use case that was explored. Then the research continued to evolve into looking at.
Just wanted to see if we could unpack that one a little bit. Can you explain the cybersecurity aspect of it? How did you put information on the blockchain to make sure it was secured, or did you just do the verification blockchain? Just curious, some more details, since cybersecurity is kind of our audience's big focus.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to recall, because it's been a few years since the project ended. But if anyone is interested, there are a lot of really good reports on the work that was done at osti.gov. They are free to access GOE PNNL reports. So the work, it was very much related to if you have a data point that is going from a control center to a substation. Now, that is of course categorized as data in transit. So what we were doing was we used Voltron. This was another technology that was developed at PNNL. And some of these systems that we have at this control center substation level may not always have the capability to directly become the blockchain nodes themselves. So what we used this Voltron, which is a platform where you can write control agents that can talk to these systems. So Voltron agents can be peripheral to these energy delivery systems. So what we did, we worked with a private blockchain, it's based a proof of authority consensus-based blockchain, and deployed the agent through the Voltron and connected to these different systems. So when these systems are talking to each other, their direct communications are not interrupted. So it's not like a bump in the wire solution, but instead, these agents are constantly listening to both sides of these systems. Now, these agents are connected to the private permission blockchain. So for every data record that is been exchanged, these agents could verify if the packet was tampered with, if it was corrupted, if it was sent by the intended entity, if it was meant to be sent, and if the contents are accurate. Now the accuracy part is more towards the integrity side of things, to be honest. Checking the hash of the packet and so on. So we were able to flag any of such anomalies because the interesting use case was, since the comms themselves were not interrupted, it was more along the lines of flagging it pretty much close to immediately, near real time, that hey, this was a corrupted or unintended packet. And at the same time, on the data at rest part, I think we are all familiar with the Ukraine attack, where the historians were wiped out and there was no way to kind of trace back to the logs and things like that. So what we were working on was, all right, let's say we have utility historians. Now, can we make a secure copy of these records using the DLT's distributed ledger capability? And could we use smart contracts to write logic or some code that can automatically trigger periodically to check, to compare, to calculate the hashes or recompute the hashes and check for the integrity of these records. So that way, if the base historian is corrupted or if it is tampered with, the software front end that was actually created that in the background runs a smart contract would actually show you the flags that these records or these hashes don't match based on what we have in the historical ledger versus what was recorded in the historian. So that gives a sense of immediate alerts to the operator or the utility entity that something's going on here. So those are the two main use cases we worked at from a security point of view.
Interesting. Very interesting. Go on with your other ones. I didn't want to, that was a good sidebar. I love that explanation though.
Yeah, no problem. So then we spent a lot of I spent a lot of time at PNL working on transactive related applications, and that's where we were looking at, all right, before building this blockchain based yet another energy market algorithm, let's take a step back, right? What are the building blocks? What are the components fundamentally that we need to address, we need to build, that will contribute towards blockchain-based energy markets? Because the goal of the research, in fact, this research is still going on at PNNL. So if anyone is interested, please reach out to folks if you have contacts at PNNL, or just reach out to me. I can get you in touch with the people at PNNL that is continuing this work right now. So that was very much related to figuring out what are the fundamental blocks, because there are factors such as scalability, interoperability, security. If we don't address these, dreaming about large-scale realistic pilots can be very hard, right? We gotta address these fundamental aspects of it. So the goal of that is, in fact, the goal of that ongoing research has been always to build those sequence diagrams, using UML diagrams or using software templates, and kind of coming up with artifacts that anyone can use. Like if someone wants to build an energy market, they would be able to build upon it or use those pieces. And if entity A and independent entity B build two different solutions, and if they both use the same architecture, they would be interoperable because they are fundamentally using the same building blocks. And in fact, some of the discussions are also ongoing in the IEEE 8.2.4.18.5 standards working group, which is another entity that I think all of us are actively involved in, where we are also looking at, okay, there's a lot of really good research that's going on, right? PNNL, NREL, NETL, bunch of labs, because there's another project called Blossom that is a 5 laboratory consortium project where NETL, NREL, AIMS, Slack, and PNNL are all working together in developing a unified testing platform, almost like a playground mechanism where researchers and engineers and utility operators or whoever wants to play with blockchain, they can bring their large-scale feeder models and test out their theory before they invest money into hardware. Because so far, there are certain limitations in terms of working with blockchain, that you gotta use hardware, you gotta have certain type of certain number of systems to actually plug into the blockchain network and so on. So what this project is building is a simulation platform, fully simulated platform where you can have hundreds of feeder nodes, large feeder or small feeder or whatever. Then you can actually use real blockchain to test out your use cases. Then you don't ever have to deploy hardware unless you want to.
Interesting.
And they're also running some interesting experiments where they're combining simulators with hardware. So,
interesting. Let's take a break here. Hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back in a minute to kind of continue this line of thought.
Blockframe Technology offers next-generation blockchain-managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. Talking with James and Sri about fielded blockchain energy demonstrations and projects. Sri, before the break, you were talking about some interesting demos, projects going on at Pacific Northwest National Lab. I wanted to give you an opportunity to finish that up and talk about, briefly, field applications or things that companies might be connecting with there in regards to these.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to summarize all of the fun discussions. So a lot of the national labs, they're looking at let's address the R&D or research and development or scientific questions that can be useful towards pilots and demonstrations as we move towards the future. So I think there's a lot of knowledge that is being published out there from PNNL, NREL, and other labs. So I think it would be very useful for organizations that are interested in blockchain style or blockchain related demonstrations and pilots to kind of take a look at these. Reach out to these national labs, work with them, and at the same time, like IEEE is doing some amazing things. Like, for example, recently, Chris, you're part of this paper that we did a paper on standardization for the DLT stack, cybersecurity stack. That was a 1 year plus collaboration between 11 different organizations from 4 countries. That's a huge document. So anyone that is interested in pilots and realistic use cases, just reach out to IEEE P2418.5, reach out to these national labs and see what kind of work they have and see if that will help you, give you a head start, right? So that's where I'll pause.
Definitely. So kind of over to James, you have a bigger breadth on the EU, Australia, some other projects going on. Talk to us about what might be the rest of the world doing here.
Right. Thanks, Chris. So one problem in the U.S. is that, like in 2015, 2016, LF3 Energy did a pilot on peer-to-peer energy trading, and it got there was a lot of press. I mean, people were saying that, this is a future of energy delivery. Unfortunately, peer-to-peer energy trading is illegal in most of the U.S. with the exception of Texas, because the law in the U.S. requires that you buy your energy from a monopoly distribution system operator. And probably that's not going to change. I think it might change around the edges, but it's not going to change much, I think, in the future. Now, that said, there's no reason why you can't use blockchain for setting up a market and have the utility run it and then trade in the market. They're using double auction. In fact, PNNL actually had a pilot of that, which they did a couple of years ago, which they published a paper on, which was quite good. The problem is most energy professionals saw the hype around LO3 energies, and they believe that the only use for blockchain and energy is peer-to-peer energy trading. Now, it can be used for that, but I think there are others. There's one pilot that I know of that's going on from Electro, which is a municipal utility in Ontario. They ran a 3-month pilot over the last 3 months, and they're now going to phase 2 when they're going to build that out a little bit. But most of the action in terms of blockchain has been elsewhere in energy. There's a company called WePower, which is in Lithuania, and they don't do transactive energy per se. They do corporate power purchase contracts on the blockchain. Now, there's other ways to do that through a centralized mechanism, but they particularly specialize in smaller companies that want to do that. So you can get scale out of the blockchain and be able to thereby let companies buy have a power purchase agreement that more reduce costs, and also if it turns out that they want to sell those, they can put them out on the blockchain and sell them to somebody else. The others, basically, the two big ones are the Power Ledger in Australia and Energy Web Foundation in everywhere actually. But Power Ledger. So one of the criticisms people have of Power Ledger is that they use Ethereum, and Ethereum is known. I mean, the Ethereum version 1 uses proof of stake, which enormously consumes a lot of power. So, okay, you're trying to do a renewable energy carbon reduction platform, and most of the Ethereum Bitcoin Ethereum miners, Ether miners are on carbon-based energy. But recently they, I think last summer they moved to Solana, which has proof of stake. Proof of stake doesn't have nearly the carbon footprint of proof of work, so that's been quite good. But they also have a rec, basically a rec trading. They have a rec trading system. So their primary thing is for renewable energy credits. That's their primary business. And they also have a couple of others. One of them is a microgrid platform, which is deployed mostly in Australia and South Asia. One of the problems with Power Ledger and Energy Web Foundation, and also with WePower, though they're not quite as big as the other two, is that early on, around 2017 or so, they put out tokens in the they did an initial token offering, which is how they funded their initial startup costs. The token offerings were not done in accordance with SEC regulations. So that, again, it's a regulatory problem. So that means that you can't actually buy the token in the U.S. This means that since a lot of their products are based on using these publicly tradable tokens, that makes it not possible to use them in the U.S. and in North America in general. Power Ledger also has its own private token, which it doesn't trade on an open exchange, which they use for some of their products, which is a little bit less of a problem. Now, as far as Energy Web Foundation goes, Energy Web Foundation is actually not it's a nonprofit. It was founded by Colorado, not the Renewable Energy Lab, but the nonprofit in Colorado, whose name escapes me right now, but founded by Amory Levins. They're located in Switzerland, in Zug, and they have a stack which is basically open source. So all of their software is open source. They come in and they'll help you build something. They recently, at the beginning of September, they announced a project in Australia, which it's huge. It's 1,000 households. It's being run by AEMO, which is the Australian TSO, the transaction system operator. and a bunch of utilities. And so the basic idea here is to actually show that you can get you can use blockchain to do market balancing between the transaction and the distribution grid. Other companies that are involved in this are Energy Web, and then Pixis, which I don't know, it's probably a small. Microsoft is also involved. There's a couple of DSOs that are involved. The interesting thing about Australia is that in Queensland, for example, 40% of the power comes from Queensland and South Australia, I should say. 40% of the power comes from rooftop solar. 40%. So that's a lot, actually. And recently, I think in South Australia, the entire grid was supplied by DERs from rooftop solar. So it was not for like 5 minutes or something like that. There was a milestone that it was the first time. In fact, the wholesale market was trading with negative prices, like happens sometimes in California, because the rooftop solar panels were putting out more power than needed to be bought. So they would actually pay you to take the power. So Australia's a really good place to do this. They also have they're not completely deregulated like Texas, but they have a different sort of regulatory regime. It's a lot more collaborative, and it's more favorable for these kinds of DER experiments. So they're like in California, the retail cost of electricity is really high. So it makes sense to put on rooftop solar, which is a lot of reason why a lot of people do it. The other interesting thing that Energy Web has done, which isn't actually a transactive energy project, is they have this Flex Alert system they're doing for CAISO, which is basically every summer, the grid starts to get under stress and the price of wholesale power goes up to like $150 a megawatt hour or something. And CAISO sends out this alert, please reduce your power. And they don't really know if anybody is, listening or not. So what they did is they had Energy Web build this app. It's a cell phone app, and it's connected up to Energy Web's blockchain, and they can tell from that if you decide you want to reduce your power, you just sign in there and you actually say you'll do it, and then they can find out how much power is conserved. Now, of course, the problem with this is the person doing the reduction it's not like demand response, where the person given the reduction signs up for a program and they get compensated for reducing their energy. This is simply voluntary, and I think it's probably not going to scale very much. I don't know that most people really don't want to pay that much attention to their electricity use, with the exception of, people who are nerds about it like me, and if you get compensated for it. I think probably this will evolve at some point into something where there's some compensation for it, and perhaps as part of the FERC Order 2222, they'll actually modify it to make it be compensated. So that's about all I've got on international stuff. I would say that we also have IEEE competition we're running for proposals. So basically, this is a proposal for a blockchain energy project. The project team, there's a form, and unfortunately the deadline for the 2021 proposals are now passed. But in 2021, we were focusing strictly on deployed, not deployed, but let's say implemented projects where the project team had a demo that they could show. I think that's kind of it's a bit restrictive, but we wanted to basically get out of the starting date with some large footprint. We got 7 proposals before the deadline. We're now in the process of assessing them, and by the 15th of December, we are hope to have a list of which ones are going to get funded. Next year, in 2021, we're going to run the same competition. We have more funds available from the Future Directions Committee, so we can select more proposals. We're also going to have a separate category of proposals, which is these are for projects which are just in the they haven't been funded yet or implemented. So we'll have the existing category, which is demo proposals or proposals that are currently deployed in prototype phase or something like that. And the other category will be proposals which are just in the process of being written.
Yeah.
And the second one will be funded at a lower level, and the intent of the funding is that the team will use it to complete the proposal and do their research, and then we'll submit it to DOE or the California Energy Authority and to get CEC, California Energy Commission, to get funded for the actual implementation of the proposal. So we'll see what will happen. And next year, we also would like to expand out our group of teams so that we get more from utilities. This year, we've got mostly from startups, one large utility in China, but most of it has been more smaller companies and not larger companies. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
So
let's just a couple minutes left there. I want to go back over to Sri. Is there anything you wanted to add? I know we kind of gave you the first run, and then anything once you heard James that you wanted to accent.
No, I think James covered pretty well, because the number of pilots or even the quality of these pilots or experiments have increased quite a bit as compared to 2017, or if you look at publications and the work that came in 2017-18 area as compared to right now. Right now, people are, as they're approaching these experiments, they're looking at what's the long-term viability. So it's good that the thought process and the use cases are evolving. And it is also important to note that the technology is changing. Blockchain, a lot of blockchains right now, if you look at Fabric, if you look at how Ethereum is changing, and even other private blockchains, they're very different than what we saw in 2016, 15, and 17, right? So we gotta keep all of that in mind, kind of see how that will not disrupt our use cases in the future. So
yeah. Well, thanks for both of you for joining today. It's been a great discussion, or more of I'm just sitting back absorbing from you two, let me tell you. But thanks for joining us today. And kind of in closing, how would somebody jump in, get involved, contact your efforts?
I would say that you should contact the IEEE blockchain initiative. So the IEEE has two different energy-related blockchain efforts. So one is the standardization group, 2418.5, which has been running since the spring, and the other is the blockchain transactive energy blockchain initiative, which has been running since roughly the end of 2019. So I think that it depends on what sort of work you like to do. The initiative is more near-term focused and actually getting, like I was saying, getting proposals out there and more focused on solid kind of architecture, which people are actually implementing. The standardization is more long-term focused, more sort of theoretical architecture, and sort of what planning for the future. So getting kind of a general framework for blockchain in energy. And the standardization group also covers other sorts of energy than electricity, although up until now, mostly what's been discussed has been electricity. All
right. Well, thanks for joining today on New Cyber Frontier.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, Or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier